All right, guys, so today we're going to talk about what it means to solve by factoring. Okay, so as a warm up, I would have us factor something like this, and we'd get 7 and -6, n plus 7 and n minus 6. Kind of makes sense, right? 7 times -6, that's my -42. And 7n minus 6n is just the one n that's left over. So what I want to try to connect this to is the idea of intercept form. Now, while we're using different variables right now, couldn't I very easily say that this is like y equals, and now I could say this is something you want to graph, where change the n's to x's, and you'd be like, oh, I remember graphing this stuff. This is intercept form, Mr. Card. One of the first things that you'd be able to do is say, what I know about this is that if I plug in a -7, I'll get 0. If I plug in a +6, I'll get 0. This is what is called x-intercepts, but they're also frequently called zeros. They're frequently called roots. And it kind of makes sense that these are called zeros because they produce a 0. You plug something in and you get a 0. In terms of them being called roots, I don't know. That always just makes me think of, like, if you think of the parabola as like a tree, well, then the trunk turns into the roots right at this x-intercept, aka the zeros, the roots, right? Another word that we use is they're called solutions, which I do kind of think is unfair because technically speaking, any point that's on a graph satisfies the equation. Like this point right up here, whatever it is, would work in the equation, okay? But the zeros, the x-intercepts, have kind of like co-opted the term solution. They're like, no, we're the solutions. We're the best answer. We're the best points. We're the solutions. And we're going to run with that, okay? So here is what I mean. When I say that I want you to solve by factoring, what I mean is, can you factor the problem and then state what the roots or zeros or solutions, whatever you want to call them, are based on what you've factored, right? So we can see here them writing it almost like this. Okay, so like if I factor this and then use the zero product property, okay, so either x is 1 because I plug in a 1 to get 0, or x is -3 because I plug in a -3 to get 0. And then I could say, well, that means that my x is 1 or my x is -3. I would also accept you writing your answer like this, writing it being like, well, they are places, Mr. Card. So aren't the solutions 1, 0 and -3, 0? Like, can I write it like that? And I would say, you bet you can. I would accept either answer, either saying just what the x's are and sort of implying that, of course, the result is 0. That's why I solved for it that way. Or writing it as a point. I'm not going to be much of a stickler. So let's do a practice. First things first, well, I got to factor before I can solve. So I need to do a and a to get a squared. I need to multiply to +8, but I need to add up to a negative. So this is where I start saying, like, be a critical thinker. So if I need to add up to a negative, okay, or sorry, I have a +8. If I need to add up to a negative, but I'm a positive number, it must be either -1 times -8 or -4 times -2. It's not going to be any of the positives. And sure enough, yeah, it's this one right here. -4, -2, so that I have -2a, -4a. All right, great. So what is this telling me, right? Is that the factored form is a minus 2 times a minus 4. And I'm setting it equal to 0 because that's what I'm trying to solve for, is when is the output 0? When do I put something in for a and the result is a 0. That's what we consider the solution. So you could say, well, A is 2 or 4, and I would say you're correct. Or you could say 2, 0, 4, 0, and I would say, yep, those are also solutions. But you can see in this one, another way people write it is just with brackets. So not parentheses, because that makes it look like it's a point, but just brackets, just being like 4 and 2. Those are my options. All right, so let's do another one. This one actually kind of connects to what we did in the last video, right? -40, -3. So this is what I mean when I say the more of these you do, okay, which is not something I know you want to hear, oh, I have to do a million math problems. I'm just saying that with factoring, it's a skill that I would say is comparable, like many skills in math, to riding a bike. You fall off a bunch, and then you figure out how to do it, and you never have to think about it again. Because with -40 and this -3 here, I'm thinking, I've kind of seen stuff that's similar. It's got to be 8 and 5, some combination of 8 and 5. It's got to be -8 and +5. That's what it's got to be. So that's what gets me a -3. Okay, cool. N minus 8 times n plus 5. I'm going to set that equal to 0 because that's what I'm solving for. So what should n be? It should be 8 and -5. Write that as points, or with the brackets. Personally, I don't love the brackets, but whatever. All right, and that's a wrap on this video, guys. From here, it just comes down to, can you practice it? Can you do it? Can you repeat this process? Please come back and use this video for help when you need it. All right.